Okay, so good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us on this public holiday. And but every day is a day to us, and we're in retail, so we love public holidays because everybody who's normally at work can come and visit us. So thank you to all of those who've joined us on Zoom today, and to all of you joining us now live on Facebook. We're so happy to have you on here. And if by any chance you know somebody who missed the talk, remember it is recorded so they can watch it later. I have people who watched our talk 3 weeks ago and phoning me to comment. So it's really, really nice for me that people are listening to this and are getting a lot out of it. So today we're very, very blessed to have Delia with us. So first of all, hello to my co-hosts, Stacey and Jess, who are here today. And we're so thrilled to have Delia with us. And she's going to be talking about relationships. And relationships are so important to me. I'm a very loyal person. I've gone to the same hairdresser for God knows how many years. I've gone to perpetually the same petrol station. I've been very loyal to my husband. I've worked in the same job for 43 years. I've had the same husband for 50 years. I think it's so important to build those relationships. You don't really flitting here and there like a little butterfly, and you end up at the end of your life with nothing. And so to me, relationships are the most important thing. And I always say to people, we are in the people business. What business are you in? I'm in the people business. Yes, I sell irons and toasters and kettles, but I'm really in the people business. And I think everybody is. And you've got to understand how people work and how to handle people, I think was really, really important. And there was an old guy who owns Phoenix Cash and Carry, who used to be next to my shop when I still had a shop in Pietermaritzburg. And he said to me, there's a shortage of rice. And I said to him, how come you're the only shop in Maritzburg with rice? And he said, because I look after my supply. He said, everybody else is horrible to their supply. Give me this for nothing, give me that for nothing. He said, I look after my supplier. When he comes, I make him coffee, I buy him lunch, I send his wife flowers. And he said, there was only so much rice to go around the whole of KwaZulu-Natal. And I actually got it all because I was the one he thought of and thought, I better look after this guy because he looked after me. And that's what I love about relationships. You've always got to give before you can receive. And especially I'll just say it now, people are asking me how have I had a successful marriage for 50 years. I gave 100% every single day, and I know my husband gave 100% every single day. We didn't give 50-50. That's not good enough. You have to give 100% and give the best you can every single day. But now come on in, Stacey, and how are you girls?
Thanks so much, Margaret. We are so good. Thank you. So excited to be here on this public holiday. And Delia, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited to hear what you have to say. Talking on relationships and boundaries is so important. I know it's an area I definitely need to constantly nurture because I'm not always so strong on boundaries. And when I let them go, I can see that they start to hurt me, So Delia has been in private practice since 2009 after her studies at Wits and UNISA. While she has worked with both children and adults over the years, she has a special interest in the impact of relationships on the individual. When we experience dissatisfaction in a relationship, whether that be in a personal or work lives with people still among us or those who have passed on, we experience emotions which can negatively impact our daily lives. Talking through these emotions to actively process them and lead a happier, more fulfilled life is a career path Delia feels passionately about. So thank you so much, Delia. So excited to hear what you have to say.
Thank you so much for having me today. And yeah, relationships are so vital to us. We certainly don't exist in a vacuum. We're impacted on by all of our relationships, and part of keeping those relationships healthy is setting those boundaries. And I was thinking when I started putting together some stuff about today's talk, I thought, well, the word boundaries actually has got quite a negative connotation. It's very almost closing off, like I've got stuff that I have to protect and I've got to keep everyone over there and don't come too close. And it's a barrier. If you think of your boundary wall of your property, it's a barrier. And the more I thought about it, I thought, sure, it's no wonder people find this so difficult because it sounds quite aggressive. It sounds quite, I'm going to cut myself off from everybody. And that's not our intention at all when it comes to establishing boundaries. I think it's important to know what boundaries are not, because it does very often get confused. So boundaries are not just saying no, as social media would like us to believe. It's a little bit more complex than that, but at the same time, a whole lot simpler. Boundaries are not synonymous with good behavior, and boundaries are not even based on social or cultural norms. What boundaries are is specific to the individual. And boundaries, like I said, are a very necessary tool for having those healthy relationships. Okay. So types of boundaries. There are so many boundaries. If you try to read online about, what are the boundaries that I need to be focusing on, I almost feel like it's a shopping list of, you've got physical boundaries, emotional boundaries, sexual boundaries, intellectual boundaries, material boundaries. And I find that can be quite intimidating for people when they're trying to establish, where do I need to protect myself? Where can I put this boundary in place to make this relationship better for everyone involved? So I look at boundaries a little bit differently. I don't give a shopping list of, you need to look at this, you need to look at this, you need to look at this. I try to look at boundaries in terms of questions, because I can ask myself a question whenever I need to. I can ask myself a very simple question. There's two questions, actually. The first is, do I feel safe? In this very interaction with this person, do I feel safe? And that safety, we need to be looking at physical safety and our emotional safety. Physical safety, I think, is quite self-explanatory. It's our physical bodies. It's how we allow people to touch and treat our physical form. And then our emotional safety has to do with, how do I feel? And how do I think about myself in this interaction? Am I feeling overwhelmed? Am I feeling obligated? Am I feeling pressure to do something that I don't actually want to do? And then the other question that we can ask ourselves is there a resource that I feel is being taken from me right now? Resources for me is some of those other boundaries. Then it's my time, it's my emotional capacity, it's my material stuff like money or other possessions, my car, things like that. And when I'm in an interaction with someone and I'm starting to feel not okay, and I don't have to pinpoint exactly what that not okay is right now, but it should be a flag for me. I'm not feeling okay. What can I ask myself? I can ask myself, do I feel safe? Do I feel physically safe? Do I feel emotionally safe? Do I have a resource that I need to protect? And that for me is a lot easier than running through a list of boundaries. Is this being crossed? Is that being crossed? What do I need to do here? I saw a couple of questions pop up, but couldn't read them. Do we need to look at them now, or should we look at them a bit later?
You can carry on, because it was just that Mary Jean said when she had a few boundaries, she thought the thought of boundaries was very hard. As she grew and understood, she appreciated them more and more. And I said, boundaries are essential. Otherwise, you feel people are taking advantage of you, especially when you're with the public like I am on a daily basis. I've got 200,000 followers. I work at a shop where there are 2,000 people a day coming in, and they all want a piece of you and a piece of your time. And you have to set those boundaries, and it is quite difficult. You want to be everything to everybody. Yes, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. But you really can't be. And especially when they want you to help you, Margaret, I need, money for this race. I need money for this person. I need to help the school. And you've got to set those boundaries. And it's difficult in the beginning, but when you get to set it and you know where your boundaries are, then you've got to stick to them, because I think having the boundary is one thing, but sticking to it is another, because you set the boundary and then you let it go. What do you think?
Absolutely. First of all, I think it's really difficult to find, where is my boundary?
Yeah.
What is that boundary line? There's an invisible line. I like to think of it as an invisible line. And I think what we tend to do is, our boundary is, especially when we start out, it's very wide. So that invisible line is really wide. And that's where that distancing idea comes from, that I'm cutting myself off and I'm creating this divide between me and other people. And what we need to do is make that invisible line quite narrow, so that it's very clear where that point is for me and for other people. Because if I understand my boundary, then I can communicate it better to other people. What you were talking about, everybody wanting a piece of you, it feels good though, initially, right? It feels good to give of ourselves. It feels good to give of our time. It feels good to help people. And our brain chemistry goes, oh, hey, this feels good. Here's some dopamine. Let's repeat this behavior again and again. And we do that. We repeat it, and then it becomes a habit. Then it becomes something that we just do. It's not exciting anymore. No more dopamine reward, but we carry on doing it. And that's then when we start to feel potentially resentful, or we have a lot of self-guilt and self-shame because, I let this happen. I always gave to people, and so now it's my fault that I've let this happen. And what you were saying at some point also about sticking to your boundary and keeping it there. Yes, we do have to stick to our boundaries, but boundaries are also quite fluid. We need to adjust them depending on the situation that we're in. I think boundaries are very environment specific as well. So some boundaries will exist in your work environment, but those boundaries might be a little bit different or non-existent in your social or intimate settings. If I can give a nice example, if I've got a resource of time that I need to guard quite closely right now, and it's important that I say right now because life does change. I don't know if we ever have enough time, but if, for example, I need to guard my resource of time right now quite closely, I let everybody know around me, I can't do these impromptu get-togethers. Please don't contact me and say, let's have lunch this afternoon, because it makes me feel quite anxious. I want to, but I know that I can't. And then I just end up feeling negative about myself. So what I'm going to ask is, please, can I have 2 or 3 days notice for any kind of social gathering? And if everybody accommodates me on that, wonderful people in my life accommodate me on that, and it's great. I start to recoup some of my energy, my batteries get recharged. I don't need to guard after a time, my time resource so much. Now I need to let people know. I have that obligation then to say, okay, thank you so much for accepting that boundary that I put in place, but I don't need that strict boundary so much anymore. So you know what, if you have an impromptu thing and you want to get together, you're more than welcome to let me know. I now have capacity for that. So it's really important that as much as we try to stick to our boundaries, they do need to be a little bit fluid, and we do need to check all the time that they're still serving us. If we create a boundary that is so hard and fast and never changes, we might end up cutting ourselves off from relationships, opportunities, experiences. And that's why, just say no. I don't have capacity for this, no. That's my answer. That's very final. It creates that divide, which we're trying to overcome with boundaries. Actually, we're trying to bring people together when we establish our boundaries, not send them away.
Now, Mary Jean says she feels that she was always wanted to be a people pleaser. And I think a lot of us do as women. We want to please everybody. We want, oh, yes, as little girls, we're taught to be sweet and nice and kind. Everybody must like us. And then how do we get people like this? Whatever they ask us to, we just do it. Until eventually say, what the hell am I doing? I'm running around getting everybody else right. My own life is taking a back seat. So, yeah, and I think you do tend to get resentful. And that's why it's so important to have those boundaries. And you don't like to say no. But my niece married a Japanese man, and there's no word for no in Japanese, so they never can say no. So they have a million ways of saying no, but just without saying no. So if you say, could you go and fetch that for me? I can't do it right this moment. I'll probably do it for you later, but if you want someone to do it for you now, I'm not the person you would choose. And there's this long rigmarole. I was wondering why foreign people sort of seem to talk so much, blah, 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 but they would have this long rigmarole because they would actually say, no, I'm not going to do that. And if she'd have said no, I'd have been, what the hell are you, cheeky kid, go and do it. But because she gave me such a long spiel, I was okay with it, So I think it's not what you say, but the way that you say it also has got a lot to do with it. Because as people-pleasing women, which we all are really, we don't want to have to say no. So we've got to think of other ways. What do you think about that? Do you think we just sort of, we should just say no?
No, I don't think it should be no at all. there are certainly times when no is in place, especially when it comes to safety. When it comes to physical safety, I'm allowed to say no, absolutely. But for the most part, yes, the way that you say it, and there are kind ways of saying something that doesn't have to make you feel bad about yourself. I think if we can learn to be a bit more honest with ourselves, why do I want to say no? I want to say no because I'm actually really tired. So say that. Yeah. Say that. Say, I can't do this for you right now because I am really tired. Why do I want to say no right now? I want to say no because my head feels like it's about to explode with the information that I've just taken in. And that's okay. So I think if we can start becoming far more honest with ourselves and understanding our own view of why we're wanting to say no, we'll be more comfortable in verbalizing that.
No, Stacey, I mean, you really love to please everybody. You want everybody to like you. Yeah. Oh, yes, I'll do it. Mimi, I'll have it. Yeah, okay. And then say, anybody gonna do anything? You'll be the first one to put your hand up because you feel embarrassed waiting when nobody else has put their hand up. How do you deal with that type of situation?
Oh, Margaret, you know me so well already. It's so true, though. I definitely am a yes person. And the person in my life that has had to rein me in and pull me back as my husband, because I'll say yes to everything. And he's like, well, actually, that's not good for our family, or I don't want to do that, or the boys don't want to do that, you know? So if I say yes and then come back and go, oh, I said yes to this, he's like, babe, you know, we've spoken about this. You need to say to the people like, thank you so much. I'll think about this and, you know, come back, let's discuss it, and then go back with an answer. And that for me has been key, is I need to have that approach that, thank you so much. I will think about this. I'll let you know in the next day. And that's working really well for us when I stick to it. Sometimes I struggle to stick to it, but when I do, it works well.
Yeah. Okay. And Jess, what about you? Because you want to be everybody's friend. You Mr. Nice Guy, and then you've got to say, no, I can't do this.
Yeah, I think it's difficult when you do genuinely want to help. I think Stacey and I both want to help. We want to be there for people. We want to do as much as we can for others. And sometimes it is to the detriment of yourself. But I think for me, boundaries really comes down to that gut feeling. Like Delia has said, they are different for everyone, every scenario, every situation, every relationship. It's not like a blanket set of rules that you can just copy paste apply to everyone and everything. So it really is about recognizing those feelings and that gut feeling for you. And if it feels off, it probably is off. And I think we're all pretty good at that. We all have a pretty good internal computer that tells us when something is wrong or something is off, obviously to protect us. What we're not so good at is then communicating that. How do I now get this feeling across to the other person? And I think that's when there's a lot of sort of disconnect and as Delia said, resentment. And also we feel like the person's failing us for not sort of reaching our expectations in the relationship. But how can we blame them if we haven't even told them? You know, people only know what they know. And because boundaries are different for everyone, if we don't communicate what our boundaries are, people will never know how to treat us. They'll never know what we expect in that relationship. Yet there's like this conflict of we want them to do these things, but we don't know how to tell them to do these things. So it's hard. And I think it is one of those things that takes practice. It's a skill. And we have to just jump in, feel uncomfortable, because it feels like you're being selfish. There is that guilt. And I think the more you do it, you feel less selfish, less guilty, less bad. But it's not easy to start, and it does take practice. I think Mary Jean sort of alluded to that it doesn't feel great to begin with, but it does get easier, as anything in life does.
Yeah, no, I want to talk about relationships and personal relationships, because, you know, I do believe that everybody should have a partner in their life. I don't believe that anybody should go through life without a partner. But having a partner takes, first of all, a lot of work, a lot of energy. You have to really be for that person. You know, you've got to be giving them absolutely everything that you've got all the time. And sometimes they don't live up to your expectations. So for instance, I had a husband who was an electrician by trade. I mean, that's what he was. And I used to ask him to do things around the house. Do you think he would? When he'd say, of course, no, definitely I'm going to do it. And at the time he really thought he was going to do it, but other things would get in the way. He's a sportsman. So in those days he was playing cricket, playing rugby, and he wouldn't do them. And I'd get so upset. So I said to him, okay, what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you 3 times. If by the 3rd time you haven't done it, I'm going to pay somebody else to do it. He said, oh my goodness. So the first couple of times he did it. And after that, I paid somebody else to do it. 50 years later, I'm paying other people to do it. And I don't have a bad relationship with him. And we get everything done in the house. The dripping tap is fixed. The leaky pipe is fixed. And so, Delia, from your side, when you're dealing with people who are having conflict in relationships, and a conflict in a relationship is always, I want you to do what I want you to do, not what you want to do. And that's really what I think it's all about. You correct me if I'm wrong. But
No,
you expect the
absolutely.
person to do something. You want them to do something. They don't want to do it. And that's where the conflict comes in. I'm always surprised when people say, I had such a fight with my husband. Well, why did you bother to fight with him? Well, I asked him to do this. He wouldn't do it. Well, just get somebody else to do it, And that's what I do. And it works very well for me. But when people come to you with conflicts in their relationships, where do you start?
Well, we start exactly there on why are you fighting about it? What boundaries being crossed? What line is not being respected? And always to remind people that you are in, hopefully, a healthy relationship, or you are working toward a healthy relationship. And what does that mean? So a healthy relationship is one that is built on open communication and mutual respect. If we have those 2 things in our relationship, you can't really go wrong. If I ask you to do something and you bite my head off, we don't have open communication. If I ask you to do something and you say no, and I demand that you do it anyway, there isn't mutual respect. Okay, so those are the areas then that we're having to work on first, is how do we do this open communication thing? What does it mean? How do I communicate my feelings to you and you hear that? And then I have to be prepared to hear what you have to say. With couples, there's very often, I want you to do what I want to do. Never mind, I just want you to do it. I want you to want to do it. And for me, that's being disrespectful. You're basically asking your partner or the relevant person to be disingenuous. Is that the right word? Disingenuous or incongruous with themselves. That they're now not being truthful. They must tell you that they want to do something just because they know that you want them to do it, and that's not fair. So establishing the open communication and the mutual respect first, and once we have that, then we can start looking at what are my boundaries, where are my boundaries, what do I feel is being crossed, and how can I communicate that very calmly. I think that's another thing. People tend to sort of emotional, very, but they also say their boundary when they've been pushed. We were talking about that line. They've been pushed so far beyond that line, and that's when they decide to verbalize that boundary. And it tends to be quite aggressive, and or like you said, very emotional. It can come across as completely irrational because you've been doing something, and all of a sudden, to the other person, it appears as though you've lost your mind, you've flipped your lid. So it is so important that we become very honest with ourselves, and we identify where that line is, and we communicate it calmly and in a time when the person is available to listen. So it's really important there. If I want to communicate my boundary to you, I need you to be in a space where you can hear that. So I first need to know, am I stepping on any of your boundaries, or are you in an okay space right now? Do you have capacity? Do you have the resource and the feelings of safety right now to have this conversation with me? And if you do, well, then we can have this discussion.
And my personal goal for this year is to get every woman financially independent, because a financially independent woman has choices. Because sometimes women are in a situation where they feel they don't have a choice. And I just want every woman out there to know you always have a choice. You always have a choice, but sometimes it might be not the choice you would want, but you always have a choice. You don't have to stay in a relationship that is not good for you. How do you know when a relationship's not good for you? When the person is not building you up. The minute they start pulling you down, you leave. And, you know, a friend of mine who was in a relationship for 3 years, and I said to her, this is toxic. It's a toxic relationship for you. And she's, you know, was taken aback because she'd been in this relationship and it was toxic and she knew it, but she didn't admit it to herself. And I said, no matter how far you've gone down the road, it's never too late to turn around and take a different direction. And I think that's what a lot of people have to, they've been going down this road. I've been with this guy for 3 years. He treats me badly. He doesn't build me up. He treats me like dirt. But I'd rather be in this relationship than change and have no relationship. I'm going to be on my own. I don't want to go back to Tinder. I don't want to have this, you know, be fighting my own battles, have to move out. You know, he'll take the house and the flat and the clothes and all the goods and everything. So I think for women who are in that situation, Delia, and they come to you and you say, you're definitely going down the wrong road. You've got to turn back and go back to where you started off and start all over again. But they don't want to do that. How do you get the message through to them?
I never start by saying that. I think it. I think it's so hard, and I try to ooze it out of every pore of my being to bring it across. But unfortunately, for the most part, if I say that, you know, you have that relationship with your friend where it is a good, healthy relationship. If it's a relationship where I'm starting out with a client and I say that, they're just going to turn around and run away. Mm-hmm. So it again comes down to respect, but respecting yourself first. Let's look at how you respect yourself. Let's look at how you show yourself that you are worthwhile. Because so often boundaries don't get communicated because of our own lack of self-worth. Mm-hmm. We doubt that we are worth that trouble from another person. You know, do I have the right to say I don't want to do that? Do I have the right to say I'm not going to clean your boots now at 3 o'clock in the morning? Yeah, you absolutely do have that right, but only if you believe that you do. If you don't have that self-worth, it becomes, that is then the difficulty in communicating the boundary. Yeah. Yes, communicating a boundary itself is difficult, but if your self-worth is not intact, it's not going to happen. So we start by building the individual and working on respecting yourself, believing what you are worth, finding what you are worth. You know, I can't tell somebody what I believe they're worth because maybe they don't feel that way yet. So we have to work on them finding their own sense of self-worth and building on that. And then we can start looking at the relationship.
You know, I work with the prisoners. I'm working with a prisoner now that we took out of jail. He's on parole and we're working with him. And I spoke to the man who looked after him in prison. And he said, it took us 5 years to break him down. We had to break him down. And I said, I hate that thought that you'd be breaking someone down. He said he was so bad and so naughty and so rough and so wild. He said, I put him in solitary confinement for 5 years and I broke him down. And then when I'd broken him down, I could make him into the person that he wanted to be. He didn't know what kind of person he wanted to be. And I think that's what a lot of people, they actually don't know of the person that they want to be. I work with the Mrs. South Africans and they always say, I'm becoming the woman I want to be. And I think that's amazing. At least you know what you want to be. So the people that are out there that are watching this and who are feeling, oh, you know, I don't want anybody to be broken down. I don't think that's the way to go. But that's what they do in prison. What do you think about that?
No, no, not my favorite way of doing things. I do believe that every person is different, and I don't think that everybody's got the tools that they need to build somebody up from a place where they don't know where they're going to. You know, it's true. If you don't know what you're building toward, how do you start? What's the first brick that you lay down? But I wouldn't be a fan of breaking someone down completely to then start building them up. But it seems to have worked in this instance. Hopefully the ends justified the means. I'm not really a big fan of that, but building somebody up from, well, I can't even say from the ground up, because it sounds in this situation like they were somebody else. They were a very different version of who they could have been. But
He was
why?
he was a very angry version of himself, and they had to get rid of that anger. So I think a lot of people, I lived with anger for years and years because I was angry with my father for dying and leaving us, and I was an angry person, and my anger actually drove me forward until I realized that that's what it was, and I had to go through the whole forgiveness thing. And those of you who've read Dr. Wayne Dyer, he had exactly the same thing. His father walked out to them. There were 4 boys, and when his mother came home with the last boy, his father just walked out and left her, didn't even care about her or the children. And he had this anger in him for years and years and years until he went to his father's grave, and he actually stood there. And then he realized, oh my gosh, that was the best thing you could have done for me as a human being. So I think it's quite a difficult scenario to go through that anger and get rid of it and go through the forgiveness. If you, as you say, if you don't have the tools, and that's why obviously people come to you, and I actually went to a shrink, I call them a shrink, to allow me to process that anger and get rid of it, because I think a lot of us have got that anger built up inside us that we're not even aware of it, but every now and then it comes out. And often you find when people drink, the alcohol makes them aggressive, and you wonder why. And it's that's what they're holding inside them, that anger they're holding inside them, which they can't let out under normal circumstances. How do you feel about that? And if you have it like a person you can see who's really angry, how do you get rid of that anger?
Like you said, through processing it. First, you have to identify it. A lot of people who are so angry are not going to admit that they're angry, even if they do. They are cognitively aware of it, that they are angry. We first have to get them to admit it and say it out loud, even if it is just to me or whoever they are seeing at that time. They need to verbalize it. They need to put it out into the room. Why? Because it creates some distance. Instead of looking at it within me, as part of me, as something that I can't change, as soon as I put it out into the room, there's a little bit of distance, and I can start looking at it from different angles. And that's how I can then start processing that anger. And I can look at it from a point of outside, and I can see facets of it that I couldn't see when it was inside. And then I can start to process through it, and I can start to let that anger go. Anger is a real tough one, because I think very often anger masks a lot of hurt. Socially, somehow it's more acceptable, especially with men, but with women as well, it's more acceptable to be angry than it is to be hurt or feel like your feelings have been hurt. That's a very, I don't know, people view it so negatively that your feelings have been hurt. Oh, shame, just get on with it. Yeah. But if you're angry, people suddenly take notice, and they give you attention, and they sort of acknowledge that you're feeling something. So a lot of the time that anger is masking a lot of hurt. So let's first look at the anger from all the different sides that we can, and then we'll start looking at what potential hurt it might be covering. It might not be, but sometimes there's a lot of hurt there.
Now, I just want to talk about hurt, because last week I hurt somebody inadvertently. I didn't even think about it. We were going to do something together. She couldn't do this, so I did it by myself. And she said, "Oh, that hurt." And I thought, that was a shock to me, because I didn't think it was hurtful what I did, but to her it was hurtful. So that's a difficult one. If you've hurt somebody inadvertently, how do you go about saying, you don't want to make a big, it was already, we made a mountain out of a molehill. It was really bad. And then how do you get around that? How do you go and just say, I think we should have a chat about this? Or do you just say, it's done and dusted, should we just let sleeping dogs lie? How do you handle that?
I think it's important to look at the boundary that might have been crossed. If she's upset, you've likely crossed some boundary. She didn't verbalize the boundary. So are you to blame for that? Probably not. Yeah. So it was on her at some point to say, this is the way I'm feeling. This is my boundary. And we don't always have to use the word boundary, but when we're communicating a feeling, especially a negative one, that's in essence what we're doing. We're saying, I don't like this. You're crossing something, and here's what I'd like to do in future. So just to say to you that hurt, well, okay, I'm sorry, I wasn't my intention. Yeah. But now what? It's got to then go back to her. And if you're very clearly a very strong person, so you can recognize that, and you're not afraid to say, okay, I did hurt you, but I didn't intend to, but now what?
Yeah.
Give it back to her. What is it that you would like me to do to sort of remedy this? Or
Yeah.
what can we do better than how can I fix this instance? How can we prevent this happening in the future?
Yeah.
What was it that hurt? Did you feel, I don't know, that I had not considered your feelings, or did you feel that I didn't value your time, or what was it? You know, sometimes people don't have their own words, and we need to give them a few words to pick what works for them.
Okay,
And then
very good. I like that.
then it's to her.
Yeah.
We have to take responsibility for our own feelings and for our own ways of doing things. We can't expect everybody else to always make it better for us. I wish we could. It would sometimes be so nice to just hand it over to someone else and say, you deal with it and you make it all better. But we have to take that responsibility, and we have to give our people, you know, the ones that we have relationships and friendships with, we have to give them the space to grow into that. If we're always trying to fix things for other people, we're not giving them the space to grow and develop what they need to.
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think that she's getting to a stage where she is going to be able to cope with things like that. But at the stage she was there, she couldn't cope with it. And that's why she felt hurt and wounded. And, you know, it was an amazing situation for me who'd gone into quite black. I mean, the last thing in the world I wanted to do is hurt her feelings. So it's quite a difficult one. Stacey, how do you get, I mean, you find you've hurt somebody's feelings and it was so unintentional. You can go back and say sorry, but sometimes sorry doesn't seem enough.
Yeah, it's so true, Margaret. My thing is that I'm not always so careful with my words. So I'll just say things thinking, you know, because if somebody said it to me like that, it doesn't offend me. And so a couple of years ago, a friend called a meeting. She actually messaged me to be like, I need to have a meeting with you. And already you're like, oh, a meeting, you know, and initially you go, oh, have I done something wrong? And I went there and had the meeting in her house, and she came straight out with it. She was like, you really offended me, you hurt my feelings, and automatically your back is up and you think, well, I didn't mean to, and you're saying, well, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to, but now, you know, and as a response of that, I then got offended. I then got hurt by how the whole thing was handled, because my intention was never to hurt her. But now I was also hurt in the whole process because of how it was handled. And you know, now we had to deal with both of those emotions and me say sorry, but now it also created a thing that every time I spoke to her, I was so careful of what I was saying and how I was coming across. And that too was difficult because I couldn't just be me. I now had all of these emotions that I didn't know how to deal with. And I was, you know, always feeling like I was on my back foot dealing with it. And that's where one of my first real experiences where I had to learn boundaries, and I had to create boundaries for myself and say to people, well, you know, I say things never intentionally to hurt people, but I do speak my mind, and I always hope that the way I say things is kind and gentle, but different people, and you know, we all have like kind of baggage from our past that need to be spoken to in a different way. And so it's also about seeing your circle and having your close friends, you know, who can deal or not deal, but understand you the way that you are. And so that was an important lesson for me to learn.
That was, and you know, I always say a friend is a person who knows what you like and likes you anyway, because then they can take it. But Linda's come to us on Facebook and she says, how do I react to a person living in my house who just won't accept my boundaries of cleaning behind himself? Every place he works on, he messes and messes and messes. I was nasty, I begged, I spoken harshly, shouted, threatened. He's over 70 and he's getting worse. I'm not expecting a perfectly clean house, but just to clean behind himself, becoming angry, impatient, and nasty, which I hate. I feel disrespected that my boundary of what I expect him to clean up behind himself is not respected. So that's quite a thing. Hey, wow. Okay, how are you going to handle that one, Delia? Where do you start?
So tricky. What was the age? 17 or 70?
70, yeah.
70. Wow. So when we're dealing with someone, much older. I wonder if this person is younger than the 70-year-old.
Oh, she's definitely
because-
younger than him. Yeah.
Okay, so that then comes with our growing up under shoulds and shouldn'ts. You should behave in a certain way toward your elders. And she's having to fight that, I'm sure, within herself all the time. And having to actually say something must have been incredibly challenging the first time round. It is a matter of, again, are you worth it? Are you worth having this person pick up after themselves? Or are you not worth it? If you are worth it, you need to just stick to your boundary and repeat it again and again, calmly, kindly. But I think we need to identify more what is the boundary. So wanting someone to clean up after themselves, let's look at the questions. So are you physically in danger? Probably not. Are you emotionally in danger? I don't think so. So there's a resource that's being taken from you. And what is that resource? Is that your time? Is it your physical energy? Is it your emotional capacity to deal with mess? Some people cannot handle mess around them. It creates a lot of anxiety. So have a look a little bit clearer what it is that, which resource is being put in jeopardy here, and then speak to that resource. So if it is a matter of time, it's a matter of verbalizing. I don't have time to pick up after you. Please pick this up and put it in the laundry basket, for example. Please put your dishes in the sink or in the dishwasher. Become very specific. And I'm assuming that you haven't, which may be on me. So if you have been very specific in the past, this might not be your battle to fight. Then it is for the other person to do some of the work as well. If this is a relationship that you can't get away from, you might need to just look at how to mitigate the feelings that it brings up in you. It is really, really hard when people continuously challenge our boundaries. Where's the communication? Where's the open communication? Where's the mutual respect? Mutual respect is not happening if a person is expecting to be looked after when they are capable. You know, if you can, you should. If you can, you must, actually, not you should. If you can pick up after yourself, then you must.
Yeah.
So
I think
for,
that continual shouting and yelling, and that just makes it so much worse, you know. So I think be specific, you know. Oh my gosh, you've left your dishes all over the table again. You better go put them in the dishwasher. Do it now, you know. And then because my way of getting around is, if you can't, well, you know, I can employ a lady to clean up around the house. It's going to cost you now 5,000 Rand a month. Either you put it in, or you pay the 5,000 Rand a month for the lady to come and work here and clean up behind you. That'll fix him.
Exactly.
No, absolutely. But look very closely at what resource it is of yours that is being put in jeopardy. That then makes us able to communicate it more.
But you know, as you
sorry, carry on.
No, as you're speaking, it also makes me think about how important it is that we teach boundaries to our children and respect to our children. You know, teach our kids to respect others, to pick up after themselves, because it's disrespectful of the other person, expecting them to clean up after you. And so it's a good lesson to teach, you know, those around us.
Yeah, Jess,
can I jump in there while we're on the topic of children and boundaries? It's a bit of a weird space, because as a parent, you know, you want your kids to greet everyone, give Auntie Jane a hug, hello. You know, we tell them to do certain things which may not feel comfortable to them, but we're so worried that they're going to come across as rude or disrespectful that we almost forced as kids to greet everyone, hug everyone, do things that are not necessarily always comfortable for us. And then we take this into adulthood with us, and we like, again, at this crossroads of, but it's right to do that, it's rude not to, but it doesn't feel comfortable. So where is the line with children and you know, teaching them things like respect and boundaries, but also teaching them that they can say no when it doesn't feel comfortable?
Well, if I can take the example of greeting Auntie so-and-so, it is respectful to greet your auntie, but you have to greet her with a hug. Not necessarily. Do you have to greet her with a kiss? Not necessarily. A wave is okay. A verbal, hello, Auntie so-and-so, it's really nice to see you again, is also a really respectful, polite way of greeting someone. So giving children options on where they feel comfortable when it comes to the greeting. A really great one for parents is when they're tickling, you tickle your kids or you roughhouse with your kids and they start yelling, no, stop. You stop immediately.
Yeah.
You stop immediately, because it teaches them that if I say that, that gets respected. And then you can always say, should we carry on? The answer is invariably yes. And, they're just yelling no because, well, that's the fun of the game. But you have to listen to it. You have to listen to it from the get-go. And it is so important that we're teaching children how to respect themselves, how to verbalize what they're feeling, rather than just, you should behave in this way and you mustn't say that and you must do this. Because like you said, Jess, you bring that right into your adulthood, and you don't. So half the time our boundaries are being crossed because we don't even know that they're there, because we've been taught to be so tolerant and considerate of others, but never to be considerate or tolerant of ourselves. And then we take that into adulthood, and now everyone's telling us we must enforce our boundaries. And it's like, hello, no one taught me how to do that. Where does that come from? How do I even start? So giving children the language, giving them the respect, but also expecting respect in return. If I do say to you, you do need to greet somebody, you need to greet them. I'm not saying that you have to hug them, you have to kiss them, you have to sit on their lap or whatever, but you do have to give some kind of greeting. What greeting are you comfortable with? If you are playing with your friends and they're doing something that you don't like, here's the words. Here are the words that you can say. I don't like it when you do this, please stop. Again, being very specific, teaching our children to be very specific. And that comes in from us at the dinner table, when they're sitting rocking on the chair, not just to say, stop it. Because invariably, what are they doing? I don't know, if it's my daughter, she's rocking on the chair, she's got something in her hands that she shouldn't have at the table, but she somehow snuck it in there anyway. She's eating something, and now I'm telling her to stop. Which one am I supposed to stop? Okay, so please stop rocking on your chair, and be very specific. So don't rock on your chair, sit with your legs down, or whatever the case may be. So we have to start getting into the habit of, when we speak with children, to be very specific with the language that we use. What is it that we're asking them to do, and what is it that is acceptable within that request?
Yeah. Now, in relationships between partners, because this one girl who's with us, she has a partner who is disrespectful of her. He does exactly what he wants to do, totally disrespectful of her, and she has now got into the habit of accepting that. But now she's starting to resent the way that he treats her. Do you think he's quite a sort of a gruff man. Do you think she can sit him down and talk to him about it? And then he's going to now push her away because he's going to feel uncomfortable in that situation because he's the boss in the house. She's always done what she's told. And now she's starting to earn a bit more. And she's starting to say, well, I don't have to do all these things anymore. Now she's starting to have a choice. She doesn't want to leave him, but she has a choice that she actually can. And she's in this difficult situation at the moment where he doesn't respect her the way she would like to be respected. Before, she was so far down, she would take all his abuse. But now she's earning more money. She's becoming a bit more of a stronger person. She doesn't have to take the abuse anymore, but she doesn't quite know how to approach him. Where would you start with something like that?
So if it's an abusive relationship, that's very different to enforcing boundaries, because generally when there is abuse, there is a complete disregard for the other person. There is no respect. So we're not talking here about a healthy relationship. And that's what our boundaries are there for. Our boundaries are there to create, develop, nurture healthy relationships. So in this instance, there's beautiful self-worth investigation going on with this lady, which I'm really pleased to hear. It does take a lot to start viewing yourself differently and to start viewing yourself more positively. So that's a great step that she's taken. Absolutely. Sit him down and say, we need to have a chat. We need to make a few changes in our relationship. And probably some kind of couples counseling would be needed here. Because if she has always done something in a certain way, he's going to bring that up and say, you never had a problem with it in the past, so why now? And now how do you turn around and say, well, actually, because I have a choice now. I don't know that she will be confident enough just yet to say, because my choices are different. And that's okay.
And with couples counseling, when, you know, often the man will say, no, it's a sign of weakness. I'm not going to couples counseling. We just had a guy who's been through a divorce. And I said, why don't you go to couples counseling? No, that's because I view that as a sign of weakness. I said, it may have been that in the old days, but now it isn't. Now you go into a counselor as a coach. You know, if you wanted to be in the swimming team, you'd go to a coach. If you want to be in the team where you have this wonderful relationship, you need a coach. And they sort of, men are embarrassed to go. So my question to you is, if you want to take him to couples counseling, would you go with him or would you let him go on his own?
I think initially go together. One, it offers support. Two, it creates a buffer, you know, that he's not solely in the spotlight. She can create some kind of buffer there for him between himself and the therapist and his feelings that are going to come up. But if it is an abusive relationship, he'll need to do some work on looking at where did that abuse come from? Where did that idea of it's okay to treat people this way come from? What is he protecting himself from that he developed these kinds of behaviors and these ways of thinking? So there might be some individual stuff to work on at some point, but there'll also be them as a couple. How do they navigate this new chapter together? And maybe they decide at some point that what she wants and what he wants are not the same. And what do we do from here?
Now, another question that's come up is this girl says that she's grown faster than her husband. Her husband's exactly the same as she was when she married him 15 years ago, but she's grown as a person. She meditates now, she does yoga, she does all sorts of amazing things, and the kids are good, but she feels that her husband he just wants to sit like a couch potato and watch sport and swallow down a beer on the weekend, where she wants to get out and start doing stuff. So she's definitely growing at a different pace to him, and you can see the writing on the wall. She's going to keep growing and he's going to stay static. How does she get him out of that couch potato sort of role?
So hard, because she can't take on that responsibility. It's not hers to take. If she does, she's going to put so much effort into it. She's going to try and do all the work for him, and he might grow, but chances are he's not going to put the effort in because he doesn't want to. It's not the path that he wants to take. He might wake up one day and regret it. He'll have to deal with that at that time. So again, with boundaries, one of the boundaries that we do have to consider is me. What is my responsibility here? My responsibility is to look after myself and to be a good person in this relationship, whatever that means for this relationship. But I cannot drag another person up this life ladder with me. I'm going to just go a lot slower, and they are not going to get the benefits. If you're dragged up there, you're not gaining the experiences as you're going. So it's really important to leave the responsibility with him, communicate it. I feel like we're growing apart. I feel like I'm wanting these things and you're wanting those things. How can we find the middle ground, and how can we do this together?
Yeah, no, amazing. Stacey, from your side?
Stacey, on mute.
Yeah, no, exactly that. We need to just grow and learn. And I mean, that's where it's so important that we see a therapist or a coach, because having that accountability, having that wisdom spoken to in our lives, it is so valuable. When we are inside it, we often can't see what needs to be done or needs to be said. And when you get to journeying with somebody, I know that a few years ago, I was desperately unhappy. I went to a therapist. He said to me, your boundaries are terrible. He's like, you really have to create some boundaries here. And he said one of the biggest reasons for me was because I would let people walk all over me and I'd say yes to everything. I'd do everything. And then it was ruining my close relationships, the people who loved me and cared about me. But what would end up happening is something so small would trigger me, and then I would explode. And then people would be like, oh, why are you behaving like this? That was nothing. And I mean, I wouldn't physically explode, but I would be, hurt and want to pull away, and people couldn't understand. And meanwhile, I'd take on little that would make me react. And so by learning to walk with somebody and journey with somebody is what made the difference in my life.
We've definitely all been there, I think.
Yeah, sorry, carry on.
Purpose to
We lost
view it a
you.
little bit differently.
Okay, Jason, from your side, a quick wrap up from you. We've got 5 minutes left.
I think I'll obviously start with, again, know yourself, know what feels right, what doesn't. If it's uncomfortable, then listen to that gut feeling. And I think another really important point is to consider whether you yourself are respecting your own boundaries. Very often we point fingers at other people for disrespecting our boundaries that they may not even know exist. But you're the first person to know what boundaries you have and don't have, and are you respecting those? And I think a small example is in particular with work and time, with this whole pandemic and we're all working at home, suddenly our work hours are not 8 to 5. They could be, but we have put it on ourselves to now suddenly work the minute we wake up until we go to bed. And so, have rules and guidelines for yourself. Work is 8 to 5. If you hear your phone or your laptop after that, ignore it. But we all want to run and check what it is in case it's really important, because the world's going to end if we don't. And I think so we are the first ones to possibly not fully respect our boundaries. And then, of course, to just communicate them. It's hard, it's uncomfortable. Start small, start slow. But it definitely makes the world of difference to you and to your relationships. And obviously, thank you so much, Delia, for being with us. It's been really, really insightful and so lovely, actually. Who thought that speaking about boundaries could feel so lovely?
Yeah.
Yes,
But it
thank you.
And Stacey, who have we got next week?
So next week we have Lynn, but we just need to check with Lynn that she can make it at, so Lynn from last week, we're going to have a follow on from that conversation. And we just need to see if she can make 11 o'clock because of you being in America, which is so exciting.
So I'll be in Florida, and there 11 o'clock in the morning is 5 o'clock in the morning in Florida. This time is 3 o'clock in the morning, and that's just too early for me, but I'm happy to do 5 o'clock. So yes, so will you check and see if she can let us know, put the advert out. And Delia, just to say thank you so much for coming on, and thank you so much for your calm and careful way of thinking everything through and talking it all carefully. For me, it's completely different because I just go, and just let it all go. So yeah, I think with your guidance, we'll get ourselves to think before we speak, which is what we all should be doing, and make sure that we set those boundaries, make sure that we stick to those boundaries, and then make sure at the end of the day that all our relationships are really, really good. And what can we do to help them? But if there's no helping them, to rather cut them loose, let them go. As I said, no matter how far you've gone down a road, it's never too late to turn back and go the right way. So yeah, I think that's what I got out of that. So thank you so much, Delia, for being with us today. Thank you, Stacey and Jess, for setting it up. And here we go. And yeah, we'll see you next Monday at 11 o'clock next Monday. Remember, different time slot. And we look forward to having a good chat and getting down and getting our wellness, our personal wellness up again. Thank you all of you for being on the show today. Thank you to those who joined us. Thank you to those who joined us on Facebook. And we'll see you next week. Thank you, guys.
Safe travels, Margaret, and have the best time. Thanks, Delia.
Yes, exactly. Bye, Delia.
Thanks. Bye.